Now we look at the material whereby we teach colour to the children, and we'll see how those points are built into the material. Now, when Dr. Montessori first began, she had the colour tablets wound in a very beautiful silk, because the most beautiful colours, different materials will dye differently, and silk does take the dyes more beautiful, with very much more beautiful colours than any other type of material. I think wool next, wool dyes takes colour very beautifully, if the vegetable dyes are being used. As the weavers in Scotland and so on get most beautiful shades when they use vegetable dyes. You get lovely shades of yellows running into oranges and browns using onion skins, for example. If you are using different mordants. A terrific number of shades can be got from gorse, which is a kind of plant that grows all over the Scottish hills. I have got a box wound with silks, which I will bring. I haven't got them here this morning. So I've only got the painted ones, which are not nearly so nice. But you see, you have this plain wooden tablet. You'll see it. So, and all the tablets are exactly alike except for the colour. And the first box, we're going to begin as simply as possible, remember? So the first piece of material will be really have only the three primary colours. And so we start with pairing, I said, and then go on to gradations. So we will have 2 tablets for each colour. 2 red, 2 blue, 2 yellow. Now the primary colours are the most different, very strongly contrasting. So the child will work with these first. Handling is very important. The hand really helps the mind to develop. You have to develop these very good hands. If you are to create with your hands later, you have to develop good hands by the time you're 5. That's 5, 6. That's a period for the perfection of movement. Just being given a certain time to perfect each characteristic. And so we are going to show the child how to hold them exactly. And the second reason for doing that is if he keeps putting his fingers on the colours, even if they're painted, and they have to be washed too often, then it's not good for the colour. But if they're the lovely silks, you see, then you don't want to wash the silk, except very rarely. Unfortunately, the best silks of all are no longer available because women have almost given up doing embroidery. And so there's not enough market. And last year these went off the market. So I'm not able to get the very best silks anymore, which is rather tragic. Now we begin by showing the child then how to hold them without putting his finger on the colour. And the bars at the top, at each end of the tablet, have to be long enough for him to be able to hold them between finger and thumb, you see, without putting his finger on the colour. So for the first lesson we would put the tablets in front of him, and then we would give him this careful lesson in how to hold. I can pick that one up without touching that lovely colour. See, I can pick this one up, and I don't touch that lovely colour. See how I hold this one? Now, you show me. Could you pick that one up? Oh, yes, you can. That's quite right. Could you pick this one up? Show me. Yes, you can. That's right. Now, would you always remember? Got this little practice with him. He enjoys. It's very, very simple. It has to be. Now, when you've had that little practice in how you hold them, then you show him how to pair. Now, we're not going to use the names, because although the child has seen these colors, quite possibly he doesn't know the names, or he may know that yellow means a color, but he's not sure which color is yellow. He may not have applied the names to the correct colors. So we're not going to use the names. We pick up the tablet, and we put it in front of him, and we ask, now, could you find the one the same as this one? And if he finds that one, you say, yes, those are the same, so we'll put them together. If he was to give you the wrong one, you wouldn't accept it. Or the teacher, you would just say, no, that's not quite the same. Could you find one just the same? Now, could you find the one like this? And if he finds it again, yes, those are the same, so we put them together. And you put the second pair underneath the first. So the pairs are really, if you put them side by side, you see, then he might think those two belong together. So we need to put them. Now, could you find the one like this? Yes, we put those two together. And we look at them for a minute. Let's do that again. And repeat now. Find the one like this. And when he finds it for us, that's right, those are the same. Did you find the one like this? Yes? Could you put them together? Put them together here. One like that. That's it. Put them together here. Now, when you think the child has understood the exercise, then you spread them out again, and you say to him, now you could do that yourself, couldn't you? And you can leave him to work with them. He does also have to be shown how to return them to the box without quietly and without touching the color. Now, we do have different types of boxes on purpose, so that he can learn all the different ways things fasten, lids and so on. And this is a slide box, and he has to have a demonstration on how to put the lid on the box. It's often happened with me that when I take this first box to the table, the child is only interested in the box. And if he shows this great interest in the way the lid comes on and off, well, forget about the lesson. Give him a lesson with the lid. And a small child will spend ages taking the lid on and off. They love to learn how all the things in the environment work. Well, now, the second box will contain 11 pairs of color. It will contain the red, the yellow, the blue, the three primary colors which he's already had. And then it will contain the colors that we get by combining any two of those. See, if we mix red and blue, we get purple. So that's two purple. If we mix blue and yellow, we get green. So we have two green. And if we mix red and yellow, we get orange. Then we have two brown. Two pink. Two gray. Two white. And two black. And that is one of everything you can have. See, so that is a full classification. You can have different shades of green, different shades of blue, but that's a full color range. Of course, white and black. One no color doesn't throws off all the rays, and one is a mixture of all the colors, absorbs all the rays. We don't want to, we must be careful to have delicate grays and pinks, you know. You don't want to, you want the exercise to be quite difficult. You don't want to very strong colors. Well, now probably it'd be too much to give him all 11 pairs at once. So first you would give him the ones he'd already had, the red, the blue and the yellow, and perhaps 3 more pairs. When he was successful, you don't really need to give another lesson. He knows that the exercise is to pair the colors. So if he's a normal child, you just give him the greater number of pairs and he can do the work. And when he's really had those for a time to practice with and is successful with those, then he could have the whole box. You will find that if you've given it at the right time, that he does make mistakes. He's very inclined to mix grey and white. You see, or pink and grey. He sometimes mixes, you see. But it isn't any help to be corrected, because his eyes have to adjust and be able to see. You can't teach anyone else's eyes to see. So as long as he's getting most pairs, doing most of the work, getting it right, you don't interfere. Now, colour blindness is really fairly rare. The commonest form, I've never had a colour-blind child in my class. So, the commonest form is not to be able to distinguish green and red. Those two colours look exactly alike to you. It is the eye. It says not anything you can correct because it is a defect in the eye itself. There are 2 or 3 theories still about why colour blindness and how we actually detect colour. But we do know it's a definite defect, and on the whole, it's a hereditary defect. It's a genetic hereditary, and it mainly affects men. They inherit through the female. The woman's father is colourblind, her son can be colourblind. But it's a recessive gene, and there's 2 colourblind people to a woman whose father was colorblind. She marries a colorblind man, then the gene comes back again, as it were. That's the commonest. There are other slight variations. Brown and green is the next commonest, I think. Very, very rare to be completely colorblind. I think something like 1 in a million. Very rare. There are slight degrees of it. Of course, some animals don't see in color. I think a cat, the cat family, I believe they don't see in color. And therefore they are very, very aware of movement. Anything you wanted to ask about that?
I wanted to ask, on the first lesson that you were showing on any of these, if the child does choose a wrong color, did you say you show them again?
If I asked him to find one like this one, and he handed me the blue, you see, which isn't so likely, but maybe he does not quite understand what I want. But then I wouldn't accept it. The teacher does not accept an error. You see, I look at it, oh no, those are not quite the same. Find one just the same. I think we are a little bit hung up sometimes about correcting the child. You see, if you are a teacher, the children or whoever you're teaching depends on a teacher who will point out their errors and help them to do better. You wouldn't like it if you were all trying to get to use the material properly and you were using it in a wrong fashion and I didn't come and correct you. You see. So we all depend on a teacher who will, but we do want a teacher who will correct politely and in a positive fashion. You see. So it's the way we correct that matters. And we don't correct when the child is concentrating. And so on. So correcting at the right moment and correcting if it will be helpful, but if it won't be helpful, like if he's mixing pink and grey, it won't be helpful. You see, because he's not yet able to see the difference. So we leave that. Provided he's getting most of it right, he understands the exercise.
If he's getting most of it incorrect, though, is that he's not?
Well, you must have given him too much. You see, he will be getting the first box right before you go on to any of the second. So maybe the next day you give him a box with slightly fewer pairs.
But once he starts on the big box and he's concentrating, you just let him go until he's finished. You wouldn't go and interrupt him.
No, never. And in fact, if he makes an error there, you leave him. It's when you're sitting with him. He's understood what he has to do. He's understood he has the pair. He's getting most of it right, so he does know what he should be doing. And so it's not helpful to correct any mistakes there.
When he confuses purple and blue, usually those two colors, they're pretty hard for them to see the difference.
Some purples and blues, yes. Well, yeah, it's only if he goes on using the colour material, and he do like colour, he goes on using it, the more he practices with it, the better he's able to see colour. You see, because in all the sensorial development, there is this perfection of the ability to use that sense. There is the perfection of the sense. If you practice anything, you see, if you practice dancing, you could become a better dancer. You build up your muscles and everything. But you can, at this point, when children are developing through their senses, you can perfect the actual sense. He can get a better and better sense of touch.
But it's okay for you to say they're different, they're not the same the first time?
No, if you're not giving a lesson with the purple and blue, you're giving a lesson with the three primary colours. Those are the ones you give the lesson with. And they're very strongly contrasting. And I think any child could see the difference there, unless it was this 1 in a million, totally colourblind. But we do also realize that you do get better senses. And unless you use a sense, it can atrophy. We know, again, you see, when you get very primitive people who depend on their livelihood on one sense, then that sense becomes very highly developed. But perhaps there's another sense which they don't use, and that remains very blunted. So to have these well-developed senses is also, leads to greater intelligence. There's another reason for giving the sensorial materials. You see, the ear, the child has a good sense of hearing when he's born. He has to listen and take in language. The more he uses his ears, the more he's kept in a reasonably quiet environment. It's a peaceful environment without these raucous sounds, the better his ear will develop, and the better he will actually be able to hear. He'll be able to hear finer and finer sounds. If he's kept in a noisy environment, then that is disastrous, as he often is today, with the television going on all day or the transistor turned up to a very loud pitch. Then the one thing the mind cannot take is excessive noise. Then his nature actually makes him deafer, you see, so that he is not bombarded with all this noise. And it's quite serious today with our habits of turning transistors up so loudly. Our young people are deafer than they were a generation ago. In fact, many of our teenagers, or I suppose people in their 20s, their hearing is that of someone who's getting on for 70, 80, whose hearing is on the decline, you see, instead of being at its peak. And the baby, by the time it's 5, instead of having this very acute sense of hearing, can be slightly deaf. And the children in our schools, coming into our schools, are slightly deafer. There are quite a large percentage of them than they used to be. So the senses can be improved and developed, and you can get a finer and finer sense of hearing, or the opposite can happen. But then we've had the pairing, and we said that from pairing you move to gradations. So now we have a partition box with a gradation of each color. I think in this box there are 7 shades of each color. You see blue, yellow, green, purple shades down to mauve, orange. And there are actually 2 kinds of red. There's scarlet, which shades down to a pink, and there's crimson, which shades down to a pink, and then grey and brown. Black is black and white is white. You don't really have shades. When you have different whites, then another color is mixed into the white. This is really very lovely when it's wound with silk. Now you let the child look at the box, and then you take out one shade, take out the purples. You lay them out on the table. And then you get the child to find the darkest one. It is, the more intense the color, the easier it is to see it. It's amongst the very pale shades that he makes the most mistakes. So I think it's better here to start with the darkest. And then you ask him to find the next. Is that slightly less dark? Next. And of course you're going to give a certain amount of help and you put the colors both side by side so that you get a ribbon of color. It's a little hard in artificial light. Now the shades are really very near each other. We want a very small difference between any two, because the smaller the difference, then the more he has to train his eye to see the difference. And so we have that ribbon of color going from dark to light. Then we could take out another set. You just grade one color at a time. Mix them all up where he can see them. And again, we get him to find the darkest. And we help him to arrange them in order of intensity. Again, we leave him to work with them. He's going to make many mistakes at first. It's a difficult exercise. But as long as he is understanding what he should do, we do not interfere. It is not helpful here to correct. Very often, when he's finished a piece of work, he can see the mistake, because there's twice the difference between these as there would be between this one and this one. So the mistake does show up, and he may be able to see his mistake and put it right. But if he doesn't, then it's only through practice that his eyes become able to distinguish these very fine shades. And he does become very conscious of colors, very observant of the environment. And you will find that his artwork, when he comes to draw and paint, this is a real preparation. He knows what we're talking about when we talk about the shading and so on, because he's had all this work with the color. I particularly remember one little girl, about 2.5 when she came to school, and she saw these and she wouldn't look at anything else. I gave her colour box 1, no, she didn't want that. Colour box 2, no, she wouldn't have anything to do with it. She was a very forceful little girl. She wanted this and nothing else.